thanks for having me here. I am excited to talk with you all. So my name is Leah Sinatro. Why am I here talking about abstracts? Well, I am a writing specialist. I study writing. I'm an English PhD candidate here at UCI. So I'm in my 5th year. I'm working on my dissertation. And I'm also a graduate student researcher, which basically kind of means graduate student employee, in the Office of the Campus Writing and Communication Coordinator. So if eventually you will be taking W courses, that's the office that runs W courses, and you may have been to the Writing Center downstairs, which that's also part of the CWCC. So I'm there a lot. I'm in the Writing Center a lot. And I'm also a writing instructor at UCI. I've taught Writing 50 and Writing 60, which you all may be currently enrolled in, or if not, will maybe have this year. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. No, thanks for getting loud. We're going to talk a lot in this workshop, so great to hear that buzz. What are we doing today? We're going to look back a little bit at what you've learned throughout the Research Discovery Program. We're going to talk about what an abstract is. Where does that word come from? Why do we use it? How are abstracts useful to our audiences? And then we're going to kind of break an abstract down piece by piece, look at some samples, and then we're going to finish up with a Mad Lib activity. And if we have time at the end of the session, we can also do like a Ask Me Anything About Research if you are interested in what it looks like to do research beyond undergrad and why I do it. Okay, so way back when you guys first started Research Discovery Program, you all learned about picking a topic, choosing a topic with Dr. Michelle Kine, and you probably talked a lot about reading and doing research in the library, in the databases, finding a gap for your voice, for your research, and how to kind of construct a literature review. I'm sure as you're working on your literature reviews, y'all have read a lot of abstracts, so that's going to be really helpful for you to write your own. You also looked at how different research is conducted and what different methods can be used. Maybe you talked about qualitative versus quantitative methods, maybe case studies as a method, observing as a method to develop new knowledge, maybe even close reading or building theory, how different theories can help you discover new knowledge. And then most recently with Dr. Bilemek, you talked about why research matters basically, and how you can communicate why research matters and the implications of that research through your results and discussion sections of your papers. So how you can interpret information, analyze it, and then use that to connect with your audience. And today we're gonna talk about putting that all together with your final step of the abstract and how to kind of pull that all in to less than 250 words, right? Can you say if you can hit what you all covered in 1, 2, and 3 in 3 sentences, that's going to be a concise, clear, and stellar abstract. So what's an abstract? Where do we get this word abstract? So it comes from the Latin abstractus, which actually means to drag away, cut away, or pull away, like to detach from the whole. So ab meaning away, tract meaning area. So it's a drawing or pulling away from the area. So your abstract, right, is you are going to have your entire paper, your intro, your thesis, your methods, your literature review, your research, your argument, your results, and, 15, 20 pages, and then that's your area, and you're going to pull from it just the meatiest part to communicate to other audiences what your paper's about, right? And so an abstract, what's different about an abstract as opposed to a paragraph in your paper is it can stand on its own, right? So where an introductory paragraph might have some similar content as an abstract, it's actually totally different because we're pulling from the intro for the abstract, right? An intro couldn't stand on its own. If you just read the intro, choose any research paper maybe that you've worked on for your literature review. If you only read the intro, it's like, okay, I know maybe a little bit what's coming next, but this can't really stand on its own. Whereas an abstract makes sense as a concise package, right? We've pulled it away to communicate what that's about and to direct people, kind of like a signpost towards your paper, towards your research. Any questions about that? About what an abstract is? Okay, cool. So yeah, so we're signaling, we're putting up our neon sign to the people in our field about what our research is about with the abstract. It's kind of like a signpost. So it's meant to articulate for your discipline, what discipline you're in, what your subfield is, the meat of your argument, but not all the details, and the methods you're using or the main method you're using without all those details. So we want someone who is interested in this to want to read more, right? Based on what your abstract says. But we can't cram the whole paper in it. So we have to make a lot of decisions. So an abstract is the last thing you write, but it's the first thing your audience sees, right? I'm sure you all have read a lot of abstract as you're starting your research, deciding what's relevant, what's not. And even though it's the last thing that you write, oftentimes it's the hardest thing, right? Abstracts can be really hard. So we're gonna talk through how to solve kind of some common struggles with abstracts. But first, an abstract's kind of like a movie trailer, right? Just like a movie editor, producer takes the content of an entire film, they pull away specific scenes that they want their specific audience to see because they want that audience to go to the movie, right? So we're just going to watch 2 movie trailers and talk about them a little bit. How do I...
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Ken. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie. Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
Hi, Ken.
Put the radio blast and goes cruising just as fast as she can now.
How do you stay over tonight?
Why?
Because we're girlfriend, boyfriend.
To do what?
I'm actually not sure.
Okay, ladies, let's do this. What are you doing here?
I'm coming with you.
Did you bring your rollerblades?
I literally go nowhere without them. Oh, looks like this beach is a little too much beach for you, Ken. If I wasn't severely injured, I would beach you off right now, Ken. I'll beach off with you anyway, Ken. Anyone who wants to beach him off has to beach me off first. I will beach both of you off at the same time.
Nobody's gonna beach anyone off.
Okay. And we're going to watch one more.
Bobby has a great day
Oh.
every day. But Ken only has a great day if Barbie looks at him.
Shredding waves is much more dangerous than people realize.
You're very.
We imagine the future. And our imaginings horrify us. They will fear it. Until they understand it. But they won't understand it. Until they've used it. Theory will take you only so far. I don't know if we can be trusted with such a weapon. But we have no choice. Snippy one. Ever going to tell the truth about what's happening here?
Okay, so those are both, 2.5 hour movies distilled into a 90-second to 2-minute video, right? We're kind of doing the same thing, the same proportions of, page to word count with abstracts. But even from this very short snippet that's been very artfully selected, what do we know about both of these movies? Tone, yeah. We got the tone, we got the gist, yeah. Who's involved? Yeah, we got little bits of credits. We know who directed it, who produced it, who's acting, and then also what characters are involved as well. So kind of at 2 layers. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
Sometimes like the major conflict of the movie.
Yeah, right? One is, I guess with the Barbie trailer, it's a little harder to tell the conflict. Something goes wrong in Barbie world. Oppenheimer, it's a big bomb, right? That's pretty conflict-y. All right, what else? Yeah. The setting, yeah, we get an idea of the setting, how the settings differ. Yeah. What about genre? Yeah.
Well, for like Oppenheimer, you can tell that it's like a lot darker and like more reflective because of like the way it's talking to itself or like just
Right.
the dialogue in the trailer. I personally I did find it a little bit harder to tell like the genre of Barbie because
Yeah.
it's more so just like fun little snippets to grab people's attention.
Yeah. Keyword fun, right? It's funny. We laugh. Did you grab the rollerblades? Right? It was a joke. So comedy. We know it's going to be comedic to some extent. And we know kind of the subject matter, right? We have one's about a doll, one's about a man who lived, who is a historical figure, more biopic-y. What do we know about the storytelling methods or maybe how these movies were made? If we were to close read these trailers, what can we guess about how these movies were made?
A lot of prep.
A lot of prep, yeah. Yeah, both of them would require a lot of prep. Yeah. Yeah. An element of like special effects, right? For both of them, for the explosion, maybe some CGI, and then for Barbie, a lot of stuff is like it looks painterly or hand painted to create a different effect. And then the key for these trailers, right, is that they are both targeting slightly different audiences, right? They were released on the same day. They were competing for audiences, competing for who's going to come to the movies to watch which one. And part of the reason that's possible is they're slightly different audiences. So, and that trailer knows that, right? And it's trying to target an audience that will want to see the movie, to come to the theater, to watch the film, and that's what we're trying to do with our abstracts, right? We want our readers to read it, and then if they're our target audience, if they're in our field, if they might have something to gain from our research, we want them to read it. Okay, so before we move on, we'll have our own Barbenheimer showdown. Who vote? We're gonna raise hands for if you were the target audience for Barbie versus Oppenheimer. Which one would you rather go to the movies and see based on the trailer? Okay, Barbie. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and Oppenheimer. Okay, I think that's a tie. Who should have won the Oscar? Okay, thanks for indulging me. Okay, so now let's kind of get into the details of what makes up an abstract, just like what makes up a movie, setting, place, character. You got to have a camera, right? Actors to play the parts. We'll talk about the smaller parts of an abstract. And this is taken from that worksheet that Anna mentioned at the beginning you should be able to access on Canvas. So we got to identify a problem or the argument or kind of like the crux of why you're writing. Why was the project undertaken? What is the context for that project? So while in your entire paper, the context is probably introduced by your literature review, we don't have time for a literature review in the abstract. So how can you kind of summarize, pull way up 30,000 foot view of your literature review in a sentence or even half a sentence to communicate to your reader the context in which you're writing? What question are you answering? And we've got the purpose, right? Purpose and problem, they're friends, they're related. How does this research differ from or build upon similar work? So again, nailing that context in a sentence or two, really half a sentence to a sentence. Methods, what are the major methods that you employ or results? What methods are you using? How are you learning what you know? How have you discovered what you've discovered? Have you done a close reading? Have you done observation in a lab? Are you interviewing people for a case study, et cetera, et cetera? And then you kind of want to gesture towards the interpretation that you're going to make of these results. The so what, you might have referred to it as in your writing courses. Why should your reader care? What's the bottom line? The elevator pitch, right? These are all kind of common metaphors used to explain, like, what did you learn from these results and why do they matter? Why should I see this movie, right? Oh, and then more formulaic, should be less than 250 words. Beyond the research discovery program, different classes are going to have different requirements for that length. Different journals, if you're submitting your work to be published, are going to have different requirements for that length. 250 would be at the ceiling. Like that is like a max, right? You can shoot for 100 words and that can still be very, very effective, right? More is not better with abstracts. And because we have so few words, we need them to be super clear, super concise. So while we're hoping that our abstract and associated research paper finds the perfect audience, we also want it to make sense for people that might be slightly out of the field, right? So that it's still interpretable, we still know what you're working on, and we're not getting bogged down by jargon or weird vocabulary. And yeah, concision. So you might start with a 500-word abstract and just cut, right? Super short, super clear. Okay, so this is a sample abstract. This is actually a paper that I wrote that's under review at a journal. The journal asked me to revise it, and so waiting to hear what they say, so send me some good luck. But I chose this paper specifically because it's about research I did as an undergrad. So this is kind of meta, a paper about a paper I wrote when I was doing undergraduate research, just like you all. And this is a direct screenshot from the submission that I submitted to the journal. So this fit the journal's requirements of centered heading, italicized abstract, and then go right into the body of the paper. A lot of times you will see a list of keywords here, key search terms. In this case, for this submission, that was separate, like in a form that I filled out, but I would have put writing studies, composition, undergraduate research as those keywords. Okay, so to familiarize ourselves with the parts of an abstract, we are going to color code my abstract. So I'm going to read a sentence out loud, give you all a sec to think about whether you think it's identifying the problem, the purpose, or the context. That's orange. The methods or theoretical approaches, that's kind of this like green color, or purple, which would be results, the so what. Okay, so I'll go ahead and read the first sentence out loud. After a both successful and unconventional undergraduate research experience as a faculty member and a student mentorship pair, we wanted to interrogate what was most valuable about our experience. What is this sentence?
Context.
Yeah, context. Yeah, completely. So let's make it orange. There we go. Okay, second sentence. By reflecting together, we use a storying methodology that puts our experience in conversation with recent UR scholarship to argue that UR definitions and guidelines could benefit from more transparent and flexible expectations that embrace UR as a writing process that includes learning, researching, and reflecting. It's a beefy sentence. There's more than one in this sentence. So it's this is a heavy lifting sentence. What about just this? Yeah.
Methods.
Yeah, methods. And a tiny bit of context, but I don't even know if we want to count that as context, conversation with recent UR scholarship, because I'm not really saying anything about that scholarship, just that I'm doing it, which would be it's methodological. So it's what I'm doing. So methods are green. Okay, what about this part? Any ideas on the color of this one?
Implications.
Yeah, implications. Yeah, to argue that, right? This is what I'm saying. This is what's new. This is what is special about my paper. So purple. Okay, last sentence. By storing storying our experience and our research, we both argue against and methodologically demonstrate how to resist the pressure of precedence to complete a traditional final product that can limit the pedagogical opportunities of UR. What about this one? Yeah, so what? Yeah, completely. And I'm talking about method here. So there's a little bit of method thrown in here, but really what I'm saying is what I'm using the method to argue. So overall, it is results. That being said, there is benefit. I'll make this, go ahead and make this green. And storying, because that's also the method. Oh, yeah. Okay, so there's benefit into making our sentences do double duty, right? And have those sentences kind of hold 1 to 2 of those components of an abstract at the same time. That's going to help us be concise, right? Sometimes that only comes with revision, right? So we're going to talk about writing 1 sentence for each part. Theoretically, as you revise, you get an abstract to work on. Maybe you take it to the Writing Center or drop in hours with Janella, and you might find that as you're cutting things down, it's actually helpful and beneficial for you to make 1 sentence cover 2 things, right? And kind of hold those things up at the same time. Okay, so we can go ahead and present. Okay, so some tips when you're sitting down to write your abstract. Try and get some perspective. Take some time away from your research paper, a day or 2 at least, so that let it kind of sit so you're not too in the weeds, because you can't describe a forest if you're stuck in the weeds, right? Try and identify the bottom line once you've taken that space, right? What's your, in 1 sentence, why does this matter? And have that in the back of your head. Refamiliarize yourself or re-identify your audience. What can happen when we start a research project? We might have a very specific audience in mind, either a class, a specific field. And then the process of research takes you on a very long and winding road, and you find that, wait, actually, I'm not in the same place where I started. My audience has changed a little bit. So make sure to clarify that to yourself again. And then sometimes to get that perspective, it can be helpful to reverse outline your paper. So a lot of the times we'll make an outline to start a paper, but sometimes they're actually helpful to finish because outlines change as you're working through it, and sometimes it's useful to just remake that outline of what's actually there, and that will give you kind of a broader perspective of your paper. Really focusing on clarity and concision. We've already talked a little bit about this. Limiting jargon. Obviously those, like I use the word pedagogy, right? The study of teaching in my abstract. That is jargon, but it's kind of integral to the field I'm writing for and the argument I'm making. So it stayed in there. I guess you could technically argue, is also jargon. So, 1 to 2 jargony words, try not to let it crush you, right? Because this has to stand away, right? We're drawing it and letting it stand on its own. We want to be really specific, cut the fluff. It's okay to write the fluff. You just got to cut the fluff. Sometimes it can be helpful to read out loud, take it to the Writing Center, pair up with a classmate to help cut the fluff. And then if you're like staring at the blank page, right, that horrible feeling, well, it's actually not blank, it's full because you've written a research paper. But you're struggling and you're not sure why you can't write the thing you're trying to write, which is the abstract, sometimes it can be useful to identify the struggle, right? Where is the hang up? Why are you stuck? Are you stuck on the form of the abstract, right? Or the content? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. And also, obviously, go to the Writing Center downstairs. Be happy to help you. Okay, so content, right? That's what you say. That's your argument. That's your research. That's what the paper's about. With the movie trailer example, it's the actual clips from the film with the setting, with the actors. It's also what the credits say, right? The names. Whereas the form is how you say it, right? The form is the short series of clips and the text on the screen and the movie house's logo, right? That's form. So we're going to focus today on form. But before we get to talk about form more, when you're thinking about content, if you feel like you are stuck with content when you're trying to write your abstract, you're like, what? Why does this matter? Or what is my context? Or maybe what is my argument? What did I research? What are my methods? That could be a really good indicator that you're actually not ready for the abstract yet, and it's time to go back to the research paper, read it again, and maybe do some revision on the body of that paper, right? So this can be a really good temperature check for you. And if you find that, I'm having trouble articulating the content, that could be because you haven't quite articulated it in the bottom of the paper. So you're trying to draw away, like pull from the movie without the scenes filmed, okay? In that case, more revision is necessary. Okay, but form, how you say it, right? An abstract is kind of a weird form. We don't write a lot of them. Like you don't necessarily, paragraphs, you write a ton of paragraphs. You are going to write so many paragraphs here at UCI. More than I can count, right? Hundreds, right? Maybe thousands of paragraphs. You are going to cite thousands of sources in the next 4 years. You are going to make a whole bunch of footnotes. So you're going to get really, really good at that. Abstracts, you're going to write less because it's one per paper, right? So you're not, and some papers don't require them or different. So it's an unusual form, right? It's a tough form too, because you're being asked to distill months, maybe even years, or an entire quarter of research into less than 250 words. So how you structure those sentences for an abstract is different. The form of those sentences is different than the form of a paragraph, right? We've talked a little bit about that. What we're asking the sentences to do is different than if we're writing a literature review, right? A sentence in a literature review might include a quote, it might include a citation string. We might say something like, studies argue X, Y, Z, citation, citation, citation. Whereas in an abstract, we don't have the space to articulate all of that. It has to be more bird's eye view. So we're going to practice with that form. So I've made this Mad Lib. Have you guys played Mad Libs before? Yeah. On road trip, kind of. Yeah. Like I feel like they were always in coloring books. Like there's this funny story, and then a bunch of words are taken out, and it just says noun, verb. Then you come up with random nouns, random verbs, and it makes the story really funny. Okay. We're going to do a version of that, but working with the form of an abstract, because I know you're probably all at different spots in developing the content of your research paper. So we're going to focus on the form today. We've got 3 sentences, so y'all are going to write 3 sentences. One that is getting at the problem, purpose, and context, an orange sentence. a green sentence about the method or the theoretical approach that you're taking in your research, and then a third about the results and the implications. So this is not a formula for a perfect abstract, right? That doesn't exist. That's going to depend on your audience. It's going to depend on your research. It's going to depend on a lot of things. But what it is a good exercise to get you practicing setting up your sentences in a way that is effective for an abstract. So if it's bracketed, that's content. Okay, so that's the content of your research paper. You can fill it in if it comes easy to you. Like if you already know, you're like, oh yeah, I've done my research, I've got the content, I'm ready to go. If you're not ready to go with the content, totally okay. Just write an X, right? Like it's to fill in later. It's a blank, right? Blank for yourself. If it's underlined, that's going to be the focus of the sentence we're writing today. Okay, so there are two options for the orange sentence. You can write the first or the second. The first is just they say. So we wouldn't say they. We would fill that content in, but we're not going to worry about that. They say X. I say Y, right? So maybe you might use some of these words. We've got some good verbs down here to pull from. Feel free to use your own verbs. But we're going to try and swap out those says for like argue, develop, build, make. Like what is happening? What has happened in your field? What's the they say? That's the context. They did this. I'm doing this, right? Sentence option B is in the X field. So I don't know if you're in biology, if whatever. You don't even have to fill in the content today though. There is a problem, right? That's your problem, right? We don't have to fill that in yet because that's content. But if you have your problem, go for it. That causes X, Y, Z. So we're going to be focusing on this causes, right? That indicates, that highlights, what is that thing doing, okay? So go ahead and take just a minute, and you can use, all of these are good words from across the banks, and you don't have to specifically use these words, but just take some time playing with these sentences. Like play with this syntax, just like you would kind of like play with Play-Doh. Just mess around with them. So take it a minute or two. Okay, about 30 seconds. Okay, and if you want to keep working on your orange sentence, that's totally fine. But I'm just gonna go over the green sentence real quick. So we want to give our reader an idea of how we came to the conclusion we've come to, right? How did we get where we got? So one way to say that is to fix X problem, I did Y, right? Other words that are more specific might be address, respond, develop, build, illustrate, demonstrate, theorize, expand. Another option would be I did ABC by doing XYZ. So like I discovered A by theorizing and observing B, right? So take a minute to work on that a little bit. Sub in some words that you think would fit your project. Toss in some content if you want, but our focus right now is really on form. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the purple, which is results, implications, so what? I found that, your key finding, which is significant because ABC. So words you might kind of think about here is determine, argue, discover, impact, significant, repercussion, effect, as a result of, or by reason of. So this is your beefiest sentence. That's like probably your last one in your abstract. So just a minute or two on that, and then can talk about it. Okay, about 30 more seconds. Okay, would anyone like to share their skeleton sentence, or if not, because I know these are kind of like half done as you haven't added the content, if anyone would like to share maybe an insight that came to them as they were working with these sentence structures? Need to think about it more? Need to mess with it some more? Yeah. Any questions I can answer about abstract, about research? Yeah.
But just a sentence, would I be like, they say argue, I say indicate? Is that what you're saying?
No. The underline is what you would swap for. So the bracket is like the content, right? So if you're researching birthday cake, I don't know, the bakers would be they. The underline would be like a synonym for say that is more specific, right? So the bakers describe the importance of frosting. I analyze the ingredients of frosting and argue that you need sprinkles for it to be a birthday cake, right? So it's like a way to, if you are stuck, right? If you're stuck with your abstract, this can kind of pull you out of that stuck and help you start plugging shapes in, basically. Does that make sense? Yeah. Any other questions? Any questions about researching in general or what it's like to research? Yeah.
I was curious for like papers. So you said to keep the abstract like geared towards one audience but still open to other audiences.
Yeah.
But to what extent should we be giving like I guess background like in our general research for people who aren't very used to that?
Yeah, so you're not really giving background, right, in the abstract. You're just touching on the context. Just like a little glimpse, right? And that's a little different because that's what your literature review is going to be for. So in a class, right, this is a perfect example. Maybe you are in a 20th century literature course, okay? It's on 20th century literature, and you're all choosing a different book to write your final paper on. You're writing on Virginia Woolf's The Waves, and your classmate is writing on James Joyce's The Dead, right? So you're both writing on different books. You would want your classmate who hasn't read Virginia Woolf to be able to understand what you're getting at from the abstract, even though your ideal audience is someone who has read that. But your classmate's familiar enough, right? They're familiar with the time period, they're familiar with the type of methods, they just maybe not have read that book. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like a quick touch. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I'm around, so if you'd like to talk more about abstracts or research, feel free to email me. And thank you all. Have a great Tuesday.